neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Pollak in-bed 7-pole wiring on a 2020 Chevy Silverado 3500. Now this is going to be a really great addition if you have a fifth wheel or gooseneck, and when you plug in your trailer, instead of having to drape it over your tailgate, you'll have this wiring right in your bed, making it super easy, and it keeps all your cords inside of the bed as you're going down the road. Now this, obviously you have to have a factory 7-way to be able to tie into that. It's really just a jumper harness, but it makes it super convenient. It's going to give you all the same functions as you would your normal 7-pole, so that's going to be your running lights, your turn signals, brake lights, as well as having a brake controller. So really great option, and definitely something that I would consider adding in because it doesn't take too much to get installed. Speaking of that, let's take a look and I'll show you how to get yours installed. First thing we need to do before really beginning the installation is figure out exactly where we want our plug. And normally you'll find a flat portion right here that's a good pocket to be able to run everything down. Sometimes you can get the factory replacement here. Ours has been Line-X'd over, so we're not going to be using that. We're going to put our plug right about here. So finding that center point is going to be key because we're going to make a small pilot hole. And normally you don't have any wiring. Sometimes there's lights built in here. If you're worried about that, you can take your tail light out. It's just 2 T15 Torx bits, and you can kind of get a clear view on that. But we'll go ahead and get this drilled out. And then from here, we're going to be using our hole saw. And I'm going to use a 2 3/8. Generally, having a little bit bigger is nice to feed everything down. 2-inch also will work. And if you do have a spray-in bed liner, something I'll recommend is instead of just going straight to clockwise, do a reverse here. That's going to help kind of get it set in a clean spot. Now we can go ahead, we can get this knocked out. Now you might want to grab a file and just kind of knock down some of those burrs. And since we have raw metal, something that you're going to want to do is touch that up with some paint. You can use a paint marker and just kind of go around it. I got a little bit of spray paint here. I'm just going to kind of spray those edges. Now we can take our T-split here and we're going to feed that down. This will eventually go to our factory 7-way. So it might get a little tight here, but I think we can fit this. That's why I go with the 2 3/8 for this situation right here. You want to make sure not to damage your wires, but it's kind of a tight squeeze. And with a little persuasion there, we can get this dropped down. And we're going to want to hold on to this edge here because we're going to start to make these connections. Now to get these plugged in, this is a one-time shot here or pretty close to it. These are really tricky to get undone once they're snapped in, so take your time. There are specific spots that all of these go. Our website actually has a diagram that you can follow along, but I'll also go ahead and get these all plugged in. So pretty easy. First we have the large connector and larger gauge wire, which is white. I'm going to slide this in. And you can hear that slight little click. That's a good sign. That means it's locked in. And that's what we want. We want to get it right the first time because, again, prying that out is real tricky. So kind of holding this up, moving up towards our locking tab, we have our red wire. And if it doesn't snap in the first time, you might rotate the wire a little bit and it'll get locked in. Sometimes it's kind of like a USB. You got to flip it over to one way or the other, and eventually you'll get it to work. And then right at our locking tab, we have brown. Moving along from there, we have our black wire. And also, as you pop these in, if you don't hear that click, just give it a quick tug. It should stay in place. From here, we have our green wire. Then we'll have our blue wire. And then in the center, which probably should have done that first to make it a little bit easier, but that's going to be our yellow. So it can only go one way. And we'll just push that in. It should be flush. And you can use some dielectric grease here if you want, just to kind of make a nice solid connection, and that way it doesn't have any corrosion buildup. But from here, we're just going to pop this in. This is our locking tab. We'll snap this in, and then we'll just get our plug mounted up. Now, there is not hardware included, so just some small self-tapping screws should be enough to get this mounted up. With this mounted up, we'll go ahead, we're going to clean up our mess that we made by drilling that out, and then we'll head underneath the truck where we can make our connections. To remove your factory plug, you may need to lower down your spare tire to give yourself a little bit of extra space. It's also going to help to be able to route up our wires and get it all tidy, so that's completely up to you. You don't have to, but ours is removed here, so we're going to get our plug taken out. It's got a locking clip, just kind of like how we had up top, so I'll pull this back. And sometimes these can really get built up and be tricky to undo, so just kind of take your time. But there is a tab up there. We got that to slide out. It's pretty easy. We'll just take our plugs, and I like to route these up to where they're not going to get anything caught in suspension. It's just not going to be flopping around. So if you can, just kind of route this in a clean fashion. You can actually kind of go in the bumper here and come out this way. And then pretty easy, it can really only go one way. It's just going to hop into these connections. So get these snapped together. This is also a good time if you want to put some dielectric grease, you can go ahead and do that. Make sure you're locking your tabs, and then this one will go into the other receptacle. Make sure that's snapped, locked in place. And at this point, we can go ahead, we'll take our excess and just kind of zip tie this up, getting it nice and clean. With the in-bed wiring officially installed, we do need to test to make sure that it's working before hitting the road. I'm going to be using a 7-pole tester. It's just going to run through all the different light signals as we run through them on the truck. But the best way that you could do it is hook up to the trailer that you'll be towing and then run through the light signals, check them on the towed vehicle or at least on your camper, and you'll be able to see that they're working, or they should at least. So we'll go ahead, we'll plug this in. And pretty quickly, we already got a red light, which is our 12 volt. That's a really good sign. So I'll hop in the truck, I'll run through our light signals and make sure they're all working. So we'll just run through. We have our running lights first. Next we'll have our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then also our brakes. And now that we know that everything's working properly, you can hook up your trailer and start enjoying your new in-bed wiring. So overall, really easy installation and definitely a good addition if you're adding a fifth wheel or a gooseneck. So hopefully this helps get your Pollak 7-way in-bed wiring kit installed on your 2020 Chevy Silverado 3500.